Lord, I thank you for today. Lord, I thank you for each heart and mind here participating. Pray that you would bless this time of learning, Lord, that we would have open minds, Lord, to teaching, Lord, and that would be respectful. So, Lord, I pray that you would bless it in Jesus' name. Amen.
We have been reading the first 20 chapters. Last chapter was carrying 20 chapters. Is actually about China. So I don't think we want to do a review on that one, right? So we're going to move forward today totally with 21 chapter. That are going to be on my book, page 9199. So we're going to start reading. Let me first do a review of this. There are two sections here. We're going to finish the chapter today. Okay, so now I'm going to start with the first one.
With review?
No, not a review. Today,
Oh.
just go ahead.
Reading?
Read, yeah.
Okay. 3 Pointless Wars. China's empire was the largest in the world, but the countries that had to pay tribute to China were constantly hoping to be free. Chinese soldiers were always fighting to keep Mongolia, Turkestan, Taiwan, and other Chinese how do you say that?
Protectorates.
Protectorates? Loyal.
Protectorates is like a state being protected. Yeah, so.
The emperors of France, England, and Spain.
It is empires.
Oh,
sorry.
wow.
Yes, okay. Yeah.
England and Spain were no more peaceful. But instead of fighting to keep their colonies, these three empires, so close together in Europe, fought with each other. These three countries fought 3 wars. Each one of these wars started over in Europe and then spread to the colonies in North America. Each war had 2 names, one used by the Europeans and other used by the colonists. And none of these 3 wars accomplished anything. The first war started when Louis XIV, the Sun King of France, tried to expand France's power in Europe. The other countries of Europe, the Netherlands and Germany, state of Austria and England, banded together in allegiance to stop him. They called their war the War of the Grand
Alliance.
Right. Hold on a second.
What's going on? You want to write down?
Oh, I totally forgot to take notes.
That's
Okay.
okay. You can read and take notes. So.
Yeah. Okay.
So let me read for you, if you possible. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I can still read. I
Yeah,
guess
read.
I can.
Then
I
you
guess
could go back for taking
I was just like, wait,
notes.
I'm not taking notes.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. The War of the Grand Alliance. While English soldiers fought against the French in Europe, the English government also paid the Iroquois of North America to attack French settlements in Canada. And in response, the French settlers who knew perfectly well that the English were behind these Iroquois attacks, attacked English settlements. For 8 years, English settlers in New York and New England fought against French settlers in New England and in Canada. Settlers called their war the North American part of the War of the Grand Alliance, King William's War, after King William of England. After 8 years of fighting, neither side had won. But over in Europe, France and England finally made peace with each other. Settlers were ordered to stop fighting, so they did. 8 years of fighting from 1689 to 1697 had given the French and English colonies nothing except hatred for each other. For 4 years later, Louis XIV managed
14.
managed to make his grandson King of Spain. which gave him more power than ever. England and the Netherlands declared war on France again, and this time on Spain as well. This war of Spanish succession
This
went
this war called the War of what? Spanish.
the War of Spanish Succession
Mm-hmm.
went on for years and years in Europe. Once more, the French and English colonists in North America fought with each other,
Mm.
just as their parent countries in Europe were doing.
Excuse me.
They called their war Queen Anne's War after the new Queen of England.
Seriously?
William and Mary had died, and Mary's little sister Anne had inherited the throne.
Mm.
During Queen Anne's War, the English managed to capture several French settlements.
Mm-hmm.
The French settlement of Acada,
Acadia. Mm-hmm.
east of Quebec, now belonged to the English.
Mm-hmm.
And English troops marched down to Florida and burned the Spanish colony of Pensacola.
Come on.
England seemed to be gaining
Pensacola.
Pen-
Pensacola actually today is still a city, so Pensacola.
Pensacola.
Mm-hmm.
England seemed to be gaining the upper hand in North America. But once again, the war ended without any real victory. Over in Europe, the English and the French made peace after 13 years of fighting. Once more, the French, English, and Spanish colonists stopped fighting. For a little while, France and England were at peace. Both countries had new rulers. 2 years after the end of the War of the Spanish Succession, Louis XIV died.
Mm-hmm.
His 5-year-old great-grandson inherited his throne.
Great grandson. I don't hear great.
His 5-year-old great.
That's what
It was
generation
just great.
different.
Wait, there was 2 great? I think there's just 1.
I know you said a great grandson.
I said great.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think I heard that. So. That's one generation difference.
Yeah. England's Queen Anne died too, without an heir. So Parliament voted to pass the crown to the great-grandson of James I, the Bible King. This great-grandson was named George Louis, and he was a good Protestant prince. Unfortunately, he wasn't English. George's mother, James' granddaughter, had been born in Germany and had grown up to marry a German prince. George Louis grew up in Hanover, speaking only German and thinking of himself as German. But Parliament was so anxious to avoid having a Catholic king that they were willing to crown a German as their king.
Is that amazing? That's why the modern monarchy of England is actually from Germany.
So George Louis arrived in England and was crowned George I of England.
Mm.
He didn't even speak English, and none of his ministers spoke German. So they had to do all the English businesses in French.
That's a little bit well, because that's enemy, right? They don't have with the enemy each one, so to use enemy's language to govern their nation.
Yeah.
So, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Only in Europe.
Yeah. England and France were at peace while George I and Louis, that would be the 15th, yeah, reigned.
That's 15th. Yes,
15th.
exactly.
So were the English and French colonies in North America. But after George I died of a stroke, his son George II inherited the throne. War broke out for the 3rd time. This time, the war was between England and Spain, not England and France. And it started over an ear. Spanish and English sea captains had never been good friends. English ships, when prowled the waters between South America and Spain, hoping to catch Spanish galleys carrying gold from South America mines to rob them.
Yeah. The pirates.
Yep. Spanish sea captains suspected all English of being pirates. Spanish ships guarded the waters near South America ports, searching and sometimes robbing English merchants who were following the law.
Have you guys read the novel called The Treasure Island? think you did, right?
I did.
I
You
think I
did?
did when we were
Okay.
really young.
Those are English pirates.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah.
One gray fall day, Sea Captain Robert Jenkins stalked into a meeting of Parliament, a jar in his hand. Members of the House of Commons, meeting together to discuss the Spanish harassment of English ships, watched him walk into the wooden table at the center of the room.
Now,
Jenkins,
may I ask you, what is the House of Commons means?
I do not know.
Yeah. I don't know either.
That's actually still exists today. It's a parliament, okay? England is a parliament monarchy. So they have parliament. They have the House of the Lords and the House of Commons. So they have to pair there, borrow from there. Is right now senators is like the House of Lords. Then the Congress is like House of Commons. So that's like a forerunner of American government or setup, right? So
Yeah.
go ahead. Why they call Commons? Commons is a different name from the class people other than nobles or aristocracy. Okay, aristocracy. So yeah. Go ahead.
Jenkins pulled his long, grizzled hair back behind his ear. One ear was pierced with a gold hoop, the other was gone. Jenkins slapped the jar down on the table. His ear floated in it,
Seriously.
tickled in the point of whiskey. You see this? Jenkins shouted. The Spanish boarded me off the coast, came aboard, tied us up, accused me of being pirates. Me, a law-abiding English merchant. And then they couldn't find no stolen goods. Their captain sliced off my ear. And then he yelled, We're the king of England here. We're the king of England here.
Mm-hmm.
I would do the same for him.
That's
Then they robbed our ship.
in grammar. What's that called? In grammar,
What?
we're the king here.
We're the king here.
That's grammar. There's
Pirate?
a term for it. If the king is here, something.
If
like
the king were
suppose-
here.
Yeah, if the king were here, basically. But change it as were the king of England here. In grammar, is that what it called? That kind of a construct. Conditional. Imaginary condition. Something like that. You don't know grammar very well. You guys don't study grammars. Nobody study grammars yet.
I mean, is that right grammar, or is it just a different
No,
way?
There's he's asking what it's called. I think it's a.
like verb, noun is also grammar terms, right? So yeah.
Which word again?
Where's the king of England here? Okay, that's
They
something
rule
you
their-
can
like
you.
it's supposed to be like they
Yeah,
rule their
you
own,
do-
or
you-
like land. They don't take rules from the king.
It's a grammar term.
We're talking about
It's a
word.
grammar. What a kind of grammar is.
Word.
Don't
It's
worry
just-
about it if you don't study
We
grammar.
are-
Totally different.
Are
so,
you-
Yeah.
I think we're just confused. Are you talking about like the way he used were? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Yeah.
We
That
are.
were.
Well, he used it. We're the king of England
Yeah.
here. So it just
Suppose something happened, but it's not really happening. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Suppose a king is here, but he's not here, right? So
Mhm.
it's just something that nature. You have a. Don't use English like this. Have a certain grammar term for it if you study English grammar. So this is when you test your English. People will test your English, right? So used to tell you what this English grammar means. How is this wrong or right? For example, if the king of England's here were here, that's right. All right. The second option, were the king of England here. Or let me ask you another option would be like choose. Is the king England here? You had to use a word, right? Not was England, king England here. Why not use was? Because past tense for this word should be was, am I right? It's a singular person, am I right? And it's not plural. Were is a word for plural. So the subject here is one person. Why don't use was he here? Why they use a were here? That's a grammar thing. So, yeah, very confusing, right? So if you test you was English, you would think, oh, was is the right word, right? Not the word, So, but actually, words here because that is a special construct in English. So, you use was, it would be wrong.
Thank
So,
you for telling us that.
yeah, so
Good to know.
something. Yeah,
Yeah.
you learn English, so you're gonna write it, essays, poems. Where are you to write essay? Yeah. Go ahead. Now, the good way of learning things is not necessarily correlate. Am I learn everything all together? So if you can tie the not just like a tunnel vision, right? You can learn all things together.
Yeah.
Thinking things together. So yeah. Go ahead.
So then they robbed our ship, climbed aboard their own, and set us adrift without oars or sails. Parliament was furious at this treatment of law-abiding English merchant.
Mm-hmm.
The Spanish pointed out that Robert Jenkins was a thief and a liar, and that none of this had ever happened, but no one listened. In 1739, England declared war on Spain.
So let me ask you. Is this really happened now? That's a good question, right? So, this guy walking the horse commons, evidently he's not just like any commoner, right? So he can't be an illegal person or pirates, really. He has to have some social standing there, right? So
Yeah.
the cutoff is here. Then the Spanish said, he's a liar, he's basically another pirate. Don't listen to him. So,
Yeah.
Anyway, finish this chapter.
The war, called the War of Jenkins' Ear, soon grew much bigger.
Let's remember that wars. The war what? Of
The War of Jenkins' Ear.
Jenkins' ear. Okay. You might want to name your son or your daughter. Your son, thank you.
This is a lady.
Jenkins anymore.
I
Jenkins.
think Jenkins is the last name.
Yeah, it's the last name.
His name was Robert.
Robert. Okay, don't name him Robert either. So I'm joking.
You are welcome to drop those off whenever it's.
Charles IV, the Holy Roman Emperor, had just died, and his heirs were fighting about who would inherit his power. The English supported the Austrian heir.
We are closed on Tuesdays.
France didn't want Austria to have any more power, so France joined Spain in its war against England.
Interestingly,
Then Austria joined England, and Prussia joined France.
Wow.
The War of Jenkins' Ear had turned to the War of Austrian Succession.
So that's third war. It's called what?
The War of Austrian Succession.
It's Austrian
So it doesn't
success.
work for you to swing by this week. If you want to touch base with me on the week of the 10th, I can direct you to our new location and we can receive those tapes from you. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to give us a call. You can reach us at 360.
Once more, Europe was at war.
5669.
And once
Thank you
more,
so
the
much,
war
Dan. Bye-bye now.
trickled over into the colonies.
Mhm.
The English colonists in Georgia marched down and attacked the Spanish colonies in Florida.
Mm.
Up north, the French and English colonists started fighting with each other. Once more, the colonists gave their war the name of the English king,
King George's
King George's War.
Okay, it would be great.
Fighting went on for 4 years. Finally, England, France, and Spain all signed a peace treaty and told the colonists to stop fighting again.
The Europeans
Third-
always at the war those days, right? So
Yeah. The third pointless war had ended. Hundreds of colonists and Native Americans had died in King William's War, Queen Anne's War, and King George's War. But nothing had changed.
nothing changed. Something changed. People died. Sorry. Okay. Kila, you want to read?
Sure.
Yeah. It's your turn.
The 7-Year War.
Mm-hmm.
After three wars, France, England, and Spain were no closer to settling their fights over North America. France had I lost my spot already, and I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Colonies far north in Canada and far south. There Where the state of Louisiana now lies,
Mm-hmm.
England had colonies all along the eastern coast.
Mm-hmm. Let me share a trick with you. When people doing the performance, they had to sing to a great audience, do a speech. What they do usually, they do. It's breathing it out, right? So why they do that?
Huh?
Why they do that?
Why did I do that?
Why people before they do a great performance, they will breathing it out heavily?
I have no clue.
Because they can quiet the heart down, quiet the mind down, right? So, yeah. So if you do that yourself, you'll quiet yourself down and follow the pace. You know, so
Spain had colonies.
what I told you to do, follow up me. It's okay. Just practice. When you feel anxious, anxiety, don't just rush into it. Doing anything, don't with a rush. Learn the simple discipline. Let me quiet myself down a little bit. You know, so then it's like a run. You're gonna make a jump, and right, jump a big gap. If you're gonna make a jump, you want to make sure you're going to have a firm footing. You can make the leap, right? So,
Yeah.
and when you want to make sure you get the right wrong, then leap forward with the right starting point, right? So you want to make sure you got that pace. So you know what it means, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so just do that in terms of speaking or things like this.
Spain had colonies in Florida and Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
But
Santa Fe is a very famous city actually. So go ahead. Mm-hmm.
But huge areas of North America still lie open.
Mm.
Which country could drive the others out and win the continent?
The continent.
The continent, sorry.
Mhm, mhm.
One more war would settle the question once and for all. This time, the war started in North America and spread all over the world.
Crazy, huh? Yeah.
In 1753, 5 years after the end of King George's War, the governor of the English colony of Virginia heard alarming news from the English Scots. Can I write that down real quick?
Mhm. 1755.
1753.
Oh, 53. I'm so sorry. That's right.
That's okay.
What does Scots means? Anybody know anything about
Scots?
Scots? Yeah.
What does Scott mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Scottish.
Like Scottish?
Scots is sending somebody ahead of time to spy or detect the
Oh,
situation.
scouts. I
Scouts.
thought you said.
I'm
I thought
sorry.
you said Scots.
Oh, me too.
That's my English.
I'm sorry.
That's my
I heard it
English.
wrong.
No,
You
that's
were
my
meaning.
English.
You were meaning scouts. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scouting, right? So you know what it means,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
good.
The French were building roads into Ohio Valley. Today, Western Peninsula. The governor, Robert
Dinwiddie.
Seriously? Let Elijah see that.
Dinwiddie.
Dinwiddie.
That's pretty good.
Dinwiddie.
No, that's wrong. Robert.
Dinwiddie. Dinwiddie? Is it just
Yeah,
Dinwiddie?
so there is a no with it.
That's a fun last name.
Yeah,
Dinwiddie. I think it's just.
Dinwiddie. Dinwiddie.
Knew that England wanted the rich timbered Ohio River Valley too. If the French claimed the valley, the English might never get their hands on it. So Governor Dinwiddie sent a message to King George II. What should we do? He asked. King George II sent an answer back. Send a messenger to tell the French. Sorry, I don't know why that word confused me.
No,
To
that's
leave.
good.
If they won't leave, go chase them out and build an English fort to protect the land.
Mm-hmm.
Governor Dinwiddie.
Dinwiddie.
Hello there.
Let's do this.
Hi, Joe. This is
Governor Dinwiddie.
Returning your phone call.
Dinwiddie.
Dinwiddie?
Everybody, repeat after me. Dinwiddie.
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 There you go.
Yes.
Then you
Dinwiddie
never
sent-
struggle with it anymore.
Oh,
And also,
Dinwiddie.
Dom.
Dinwiddie.
Yes,
Dinwiddie
we
I'm
have
done with you
all
now,
of them
so-
we have should fit on one DVD.
Go ahead.
That's usually how we do it
Governor
for projects that are
Dinwiddie
less
sighed.
than 1,000 feet. Is
He
essentially
had
a DVD can hold
Very few
that much
fighting
content.
men.
So,
Certainly not
for-
enough to take on
I'm sorry.
all of France.
Mm.
And who would
No worries.
be
So if you
willing
wanted
to
get
travel
an additional
through
duplicate,
hundreds
it is
of
an
miles
additional $10.
of wilderness,
And then it is
risking
like-
capture,
Okay, you got
carrying
it. So
the
you'll get
letter
2
telling
DVDs
France to
of the same
retreat.
content, is that correct?
Oh, that's a question mark. Sorry.
So
Yeah.
who, they were asking who would do this.
Who would do that?
Yes.
And
Sorry.
we'll have you on the phone. If you'd like, I can
Mm.
go ahead and collect your credit card information to
A young
process that
Virginian
50% deposit, and we can
Volunteered.
get started transferring.
volunteered. George Washington, only 21 years old, had
Sure,
been
that's no
born
problem. There's
in
no rush on my
Virginia
part.
on an English tobacco farm.
Okay, fabulous, Jill.
He had spent the
Okay,
last
no
few
worries,
years
though, you bet.
working as
Bye
a
now.
surveyor.
Severe.
Severe.
You know severe what it means?
Severe?
Severe.
Surveyor.
What that means?
Surveyor? I do not know that.
It is somebody measures the land, you know, to chart the land, to see where north is, to lay the boundaries, try to, okay, that's 10 acres land, that's 100 acre land, you know,
By
so.
looking at the
Yeah,
property, by
that's,
looking
that's,
at
yeah,
the
that's
map.
north, this belongs to the state of Virginia, this belongs to the state of California, whatever, so, you
Oh,
know,
okay.
severe. You know who is a severe used to be around this region? Severe those days were actually a government official, so Thomas Jefferson's was a severe actually. So you know who is a severe in our life? Virginia, Virginia's husband, which is Eileen's grandfather. In a sense, was a severe. So still, the profession still carry on today. Are still needed. So yeah.
Alright,
Is that
mention-
making sense to you guys? Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is it important? Why is it important in those days?
Because they would know their land and
Exactly,
They would
it's a new
understand what's
land. They
there,
never
how
know
to-
what how large the land is, right? So they
and
have
how
to
to
do
take care of the land.
exactly, exactly. Especially when neighbor have a land that don't know exactly where to cut the boundary. State don't know to cut the boundary. Not like today, everything is measured, settled, am I right? So yeah. Yeah.
Measuring farms and drawing up maps for their owners.
Yeah.
But
very
George Washington wanted to be a soldier, not a. I already forgot how to pronounce
severe.
it. Severe.
Mm-hmm.
He begged Governor Dinwiddie for permission.
Dinwiddie, Dinwiddie,
Dinwiddie.
Dinwiddie. I believe so.
Dinwiddie, okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
For permission to carry the message. On Halloween, the governor agreed. Washington found the wilderness guide and translator to accompany him and set off the same day, not even waiting for morning. It took 3 weeks for the little party to ride through the mountains, up through the Ohio River Valley, and to the headquarters of the French. When he was just days away, Washington found himself at the richest place in the whole valley, Ohio Fork. There were 3 rivers joined together. Washington thought to himself, a fort built here could command the whole valley.
Mm.
He traveled on finally, reaching the French headquarters north of the valley, when he gave the French commander the governor's message, and
The commander.
The commander simply laughed and told the young man to go back to Virginia.
Mm.
Washington set off.
Let's somebody else read on from there, then come back to you. So Go ahead.
Me?
Esther read on. So. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Unless you don't read.
Oh no, it's good. I was just
Okay.
writing. Washington set off. By now, it was the middle of December, snowing and growing colder by the minute. His little party was running out of food.
Let me give you a trick. Read the book as if you're telling a story, not while reading a textbook. You know, that's different tune, right? You will overcome your fear of reading as well.
Terrible.
No, you're not. You're doing perfect. You're doing good. So it's just that you overcome the fear. Oh, I try to tell a story. I'm not trying to. You're reading a textbook with many intimidating for me, you know. So yeah. Go ahead.
Their horse-
Start it over. I'm going to read like story, telling a story. Mm-hmm.
Wait, start over from where I started.
Well,
Washington set off. By now, it was the middle of December,
mm-hmm.
snowing and growing colder by the minute.
Mm-hmm.
His little party was running out of food. Their horses were starving and so weak that Washington finally left them behind.
Mm-hmm.
As he trudged through the snow with his wilderness guide, a Native American ally of the French leapt out and shot at him.
Oh, wow.
Washington was afraid that the French had regretted letting him go and had sent assassins after him. He hurried to the shores of the Allegheny River.
Ah, that's right.
Allegheny?
Allegheny River. That's I remember I heard that one before. How to pronounce it? Oh, you don't have the book. Here we go.
What?
How to spell this? Pronounce this? Allegheny.
Allegheny River.
Allegheny River.
Allegheny?
Mm-hmm.
Allegheny.
Allegheny River.
Allegheny River.
He had to get across right away, but the river was filled with rolling cakes of ice. Washington and his guide built a raft and launched it out into the river. Ice slammed against it, overturning it. Washington fell, clutching for the raft's edge. He barely caught it and hauled himself back up, dripping. The guide still clung to the raft. The two men came around on a little island at the middle of the river.
Aground.
Aground. On
I
a little...
think that is a ground basically setting off on the land, right?
Yeah, setting foot on the land.
yeah.
And there they spent the night, with no fire or food. The temperature dropped more and more. Ice rattled down them. Washington's clothes froze solid. But in the morning, the river was a sheet of thick ice. The two men walked across it to the opposite shore. Finally, they reached a settlement where English traders lived, and they managed to get fresh horses for the ride home.
Mm.
When Washington arrived back at Governor Dinwiddie's palace in Williamsburg, he told the governor about the French refusal.
Mm-hmm.
Dinwiddie sent a message to England asking for more soldiers. Meanwhile, 40 men were sent to build a fort at the place where Three Rivers met. Dinwiddie promoted Washington to a higher rank and sent him to protect the new little fort along with a small band of colonial
soldiers.
soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
But the French were already too strong. They took away the little fort and defeated Washington's tiny army. Washington surrendered and was allowed to retreat. The English weren't about to give up. 2,000 English regular soldiers arrived from London.
Compared to what? Regular compared to colonial soldier, right?
Oh.
Understandably, see how regular means official army those days, am I? You know, so commanded by English officer, obviously. Then colonial soldier will be commanded by a colony residents, right? Or somebody grew up in North America. Making sense to you? So,
Under the command of an English general. Edward Braddock.
Braddock.
Mm.
Braddock?
I think you read it right. Braddock.
Braddock?
Mhm.
Edward Braddock was sure that his regular and disciplined troops would quickly beat off the French and their Native American allies.
Also thinking about myself because I don't know much about this. But regular basically is people don't fight in. It's a professional, right? It's the soldier paid on yearly basis on carry a wage, but colonists might the farmers or others, so the only fight or trained for the word were in regular time, am I right? So that word regular, irregular making sense now. So, go ahead.
He invited George Washington to come along with him as his aide to see the English victory.
Mm-hmm.
But Braddock had no idea how to fight in the rough woods and mountains of North America. He marched his men toward the Ohio River Valley in a long line, beating drums and waving banners, blasting rocks out of the way.
Seriously?
The French were ready. They ambushed Braddock's soldiers from behind trees, just 10 miles away from the Ohio Ford. The soldiers' red uniform coats made them easy targets, and when the English soldiers tried to hide and shoot from being behind trees, Braddock ordered them back into line. 1,000 English soldiers fell, and the rest ran away in terror. Washington himself had 2 horses shot out from underneath him. When he undressed that night, he found 4 bullet holes through his clothing.
Oh, wow.
The French and Indian War had begun.
Wow. That's terrible, huh? That's a foolish general, huh?
I don't understand their standing in a line kind of.
Because
battle
that's how
tactic.
they're trained.
I know, but it's just like so terrible.
Isn't that the
I
one
know.
where you just like
it's
go
not
back and forth?
flexible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Standing in a
Yeah.
line,
Standing
shooting.
in a line shooting.
In those
the
days,
other.
right? You remember? Even the days
Yeah,
of Civil
and then,
War,
well,
century later.
I
Sorry.
believe while the people in front, when they were loading their guns, people would go like hop in front of them,
Yeah.
and so the other people could load their guns.
Yeah, those days have reason because you can concentrate your firepower. Think
Yeah.
about it. If you one shot, it's hunting is okay, but when you facing a great people, great company on opposition side, you want to concentrate. They're like shooting arrows. You don't one person do it, all the people shooting the arrow,
Yeah.
right? So if you break the rack, then the firepower may be different. But in the wooded area, you're gonna ambush. People have cover, and you don't see covers. That is a little bit inflexible. So yeah, but he has a reason to do what he did, I guess. So go ahead.
Soon other countries in Europe chose sides and joined in. The war spread across Europe, even into India, and across the oceans of the world. The French and Indian War was given a new European name.
Called
7 Years' War.
7 years of war. It's always under war, man.
At first, France seemed to be gaining the upper hand, but the Prime Minister of England, William Pitt,
Oh, that's a world famous prime minister.
William
William Pitt. Yeah.
was determined that England would triumph. He made sure that the English troops in North America had plenty of money, ships, and ammunition.
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 You know what it means?
Isn't it like,
Supply for
Yeah,
weapons,
yeah.
right? Mhm.
and that the colonial soldiers and the regulars from England fought together, rather than bickering with each other.
Mhm.
And the English redcoats began to figure out how to fight in the woods and fields of North America. They took off their red coats, turned them inside out, and covered the insides with clay. They rubbed soot and dirt on their shiny, ship-shaped gun barrels so that they wouldn't glint in the sun.
Mm.
Then they started fighting in small groups from behind trees.
Mm.
The Indian allies of the French were disgusted. Those redcoats, they told the French, no longer stand still and let us kill them.
Yeah.
The
Those
French,
red coats.
the French were having troubles at home too. Louis, I don't know what number that is.
The 15th.
Newsstream Studio, this is Elaine. How can I help you?
15th. Mm-hmm.
Louis the 15th.
He's on the other side of the X. That means
Yes,
you
my-
add 5. and
Yes,
that's all.
sir.
Yeah. X is 10, 5 is 5.
Yes,
I mean,
V
we is
is
5.
fine.
Sorry.
Five is fine.
Yes, sir.
Louis the 15th had grown up into a weak and wasteful man. He spent most of his time chasing women and wallowing in luxury
That's totally fine with
and
me. That
becoming
works for
more
you.
and more unpopular. In 1757,
Perfect. See you then, Mike.
3 years after the
Bye
war
now.
began, an assassin sneaked into the royal palace of Versailles and tried to kill him with a pocket knife.
What?
Soon, who did?
Assassin.
An assassin.
Soon the English were driving the French out of North America. George Washington led a successful attack on the Ohio River fort and won it back for England. It was renamed Fort Pitt after the Prime Minister.
Mm.
Today, the city of Pittsburgh stands where the fort was first built. When the English conquered Quebec, the capital of New France, the next year, Montreal fell to England as well. New France belonged to England.
Newsstream Studio,
The
this
French
is Elaine.
agreed
How can I
to
help you?
surrender.
Mm-hmm.
In 1763, the Treaty of Paris ended.
Mm-hmm.
Ended the 7 Years' War. Louis XV agreed to give up all of France's lands in North America,
Mm-hmm.
except for the territory called Louisiana.
Correct.
Many-
Well, the rush
many
card is
settlers
on there, but the
in
service
New France
cost that he
moved back
initially
to
thought that it
France,
was gonna be
or down
is
to
actually,
New
was
York
actually more.
or Orleans.
I think
Why
he
can't
was
I say
thinking that it was
Orleans?
like an
New
analog
Orleans?
New Orleans.
tape that was being digitized, but
In
the
Louisiana
actual
Some states
CD was
still
already
speak
digital
in French,
files
but
on
now
there.
under
So
British
essentially,
rule.
we just needed to make
Louis
the
XV
cost
had
of
lost
the
a
CD
huge
offering.
empire that Louis
It's just
XIV
$29.95
had saved.
rather than like $79.95.
His people hated him for it.
Mm.
Yes, sir.
When he died of smallpox,
No problem.
not
We'll
long
see you
afterwards,
Wednesday.
his courtiers poured quicklime on his body and buried him at night with no ceremony.
Newsstream
He
Studio,
had
this is
become the
Elaine.
most
How can I help
unpopular
you?
person in France.
Wow. Louis
No,
15.
yes, sir.
Wow, Elaine's busy, man.
Yes.
She's too busy. Now we have
All right,
10
so
minutes
we're
left. Do you want us to
including
buy
the
your teeth to
$100 for
death?
the DVD duplicate. After taxes, it's gonna be $235.
Sorry.
Oh, we just
Now
need
let's do a
credit card.
review.
Oh, we're gonna take
Somebody help me do a
50% of
review.
that.
Whoever took notes.
Yeah, whoever did that.
I didn't do much for part 2 on notes.
That's
but I
okay.
did part 1.
You read it, so Elijah, do the review for
Yes,
part
I can
1.
certainly
Okay.
send you a physical statement, absolutely.
So, this was the starting of the 3.
Absolutely.
Pointless
I'll send you a
wars.
physical one and then I'll also
And,
email you one to the one that.
Like 3 wars started in Europe and spread to North America,
Mm.
and like that's kind of the time
All of
that
them,
it
yeah.
started.
Mhm.
The French fought England, and that was like an 8 years of like pointless war because just all it did is just make them get angry at each other, and people were just dying for no reason.
Mm.
I think one of those wars was called like the War of Spanish Succession.
The first war is a war of Grand.
And the security code
Alliance.
on that.
That was the first war.
Uh-huh.
Let me write that down.
Grand Alliance. The part
And
in
then
North
just the last
America
thing
called
is
the
the
King
billing
William's
zip
War,
code.
after King William of England.
Perfect.
Lasts for 80
That is
years.
terrific. I will go ahead and process that and then
Between
get you
Bissell and
copies of your
Mindy,
invoices out to the email address as well as
French,
to your physical address.
And
we will get started
France, I'm
transferring
sorry,
for
France
you,
and
I will be in
England.
touch as soon as the project is completed and ready to
All right.
ship
So
out
the
to
first
you.
war was called the War of Great Alliance, and then the other one was
Yes,
War
I
of
would
Spanish
estimate it
Succession.
had been a little bit less
But
than
then
that,
British
but
settlement
yeah, no more than
was,
that for sure.
uh,
Sure thing, Joe.
I think
thank
actually
you.
the Grand Alliance War
Goodbye
was
now.
renamed King William's War, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Counterparts.
King
Yeah.
William.
There's war in Europe, then there's a war in America because it's spread over in North America. So they have different names for it, based on the ruler, you know, the reign, the king basically, or the queen in England. So.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So yeah, just a lot of war was going on. Like the French settlements were captured, and settlers were fighting. The French, English, and Spanish. Finally, after a lot of war, after like new rulers came into those regions, had peace for appointed or a certain amount of time, and then George Louis, a German, became ruler. And then war between English and Spain.
The second war called it this Spanish succession war was Spanish succession.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, what is the counterpart for North America? Called the Queen Anne's War, right? Anne's War. Yeah. I'm sorry, just trying to.
Yeah, no.
So those might be. If I'm gonna test you, that's I'm gonna test you, right? So, yeah. So the third is we see the change of rulers in French as well in England, right? In British. So, go ahead.
So yeah, George Louis became ruler, and they were fine with a German rather than like a
George the First, Louis 15th, basically changed.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So George Louis, but they usually wouldn't. They would they would rather have a German king rather than a Catholic, so they just let him be ruler. And then war between English and Spain began because of the Robert Jenkins, and that was called the War of Jenkins. And then the Robert Jenkins story with him, sea captain, his ear got cut off because they didn't have anything else to do to him, and he was innocent, but that started a war. They said he was a liar.
Yeah.
And then the War of Jenkins started in 1739. And then another war, which was called was called the War of Austrian Succession. And then I think the chapter ends with that war.
Yeah.
But nothing changed.
But nothing changed. Through all that,
Except for people dying.
nothing.
But many years passed. Many people died.
Yeah, that was the only thing that changed. Nothing was resolved. Though.
History moves on, so everything changed. Right? That's terrible conclusion there. Nothing changed. Nothing changed. True. Somebody do the 7-year volunteer now. So 7-year war for us.
Well, the 7-Year War was known as the French and Indian War. When it began, they had Washington led troops down to war where they were ambushed, and Washington actually found bullet holes when they were led by. I don't think I wrote down his name. I thought I did. Oh, Edward
Governor Dinwiddie?
Braddock. So it was very smart. 1,000 Englishmen died.
That's a lot of people, huh?
And then... Oh, it talks about the redcoats and how they started turning their clothes inside out and putting clay on the inside of them and making everything sort of like camouflaged and in disguise. And the English were mad about it because they wanted them to stay out in lines where they could see you and so they could kill them.
Yeah.
And then it says in here, Louis the 15th, where Louis the 15th wasn't very like when he was more an adult, he was more of a weak man and he was chasing after women and like he wasn't very kingish, I guess. And then I forgot
Very
who.
kingly.
Somebody tried to kill him with a pocket knife.
Yeah.
Well, that's like the last half of the chapter. Where's the first part?
The first part disappeared.
I don't know. I was so. I
Washington
had so many
story,
notes
so-
to write down.
Uh-huh.
Well, she was reading the first
Yeah.
part. So she
Yeah.
didn't get.
I didn't really get to write
Yeah.
anything down, but
But Washington Washington is very courageous, and right?
Yeah.
Started that scouting.
Yeah,
Scout.
He actually survived a lot of
Like
things.
he was only 21 years old, right? So
Yeah, he survived actually quite a few things until he died of
died of
something
what?
in his throat, like throat cancer or something.
He has
like
a illness that causing death. Okay.